to launch the Chrome extension, I built up a little email list. I had like 100 emails on it.
I
And
love how scrappy it is. I love that.
yeah, it's not anything like it is today.
You got all your return back already, so it's good.
Yeah, win right away.
Yeah.
So I wanted the items that were in the highest demand with the least amount of competition. I had every challenge in the book. Practically overnight, sales on Amazon increased 50%. I actually did the first million that first year.
Oh, that's good. You are watching or listening to the Dan Lok Show today. As usual, I have another incredible, amazing, smart founder with me. If you don't know him, you'll get to know him a lot. Greg Mercer, 2020 EY Entrepreneur of the Year, is the founder and CEO of Jungle Scout. He's a leader in the Amazon selling community who originally built Jungle Scout as a Chrome extension to automate his process of finding products to sell online. And today he leads a team of 200 plus global employees who have built Jungle Scout into a robust suite of SaaS solutions. Welcome to the show, my man.
Dan, thank you very much for having me on. I'm excited to chat with you.
I'm excited too. Share with us your journey. How did you come up with the idea, and how did you take really from a Chrome extension to the company that you have today?
Yeah, so if we rewind back to my college days, I went to school to be a civil engineer. Got a job doing that when I graduated, and realized within 2 weeks that I hated it. I was like, man, this is not for me. My whole life, I've kind of had this entrepreneurial spirit. I think I always wanted to work for myself and really just wanted to build my own business. So I was at the time just actually looking for any path out of this job. One thing I knew for sure is I did not want this job. I wanted my own business, and I was willing to kind of make money anyway. I didn't care. As long as I made as much money as I did my real job, I was going to be excited about it. And tried a whole bunch of different stuff. The first thing that really stuck was selling physical products on Amazon through their FBA program.
Yes.
So how it worked was I was importing goods from China.
Yes.
I was shipping them into the Amazon fulfillment centers. And when someone places an order on Amazon, they get shipped from the fulfillment centers to the end customer. And that business did really well for me. So through that, I was able to quit my job. So that was the goal was hit.
Yes, that's it. Be your own boss. Freedom. Here we go.
That's right. And so I quit. I kind of took that full time. Now that obviously isn't Jungle Scout. So how Jungle Scout was born is the success of my business on Amazon was directly correlated back to my ability to understand how well all the products on Amazon were selling and find the products that had the highest ratio between competition and demand for the product. So I wanted the items that were in the highest demand with the least amount of competition. And to do that, I built these algorithms that could estimate to a relatively high degree of accuracy how well all products on Amazon sold. And for those listeners who are familiar with the space now, companies like Jungle Scout and now others exist that do that. But at the time, no one was doing that. So everyone was just kind of selling blind on Amazon at the time. They had no idea how much demand there were for all these products. So with that, I, as kind of a fun little side project, it wasn't supposed to turn into anything. I built a Chrome extension that had those algorithms built into it. And I sold it. So I, at the time, it was $100 one-time fee. Yes. And you could download this Chrome extension, and you would go to any Amazon page, you would run it, and it would say okay, this flashlight sells 500 units per month. And you could do that for different items to see which items were in high demand, and then look for the type that you wanted to sell. And that was ultimately how Jungle Scout was born. That was 6 years ago now, so it's much different today, but that's how I got started in it.
So in some way, that Chrome extension was your kind of your MVP, your minimum viable product, right? You got it going. And it also seems to me you were building it in some ways, solving your own problems, right? Hey, I kind of need this. And that's how a lot of great SaaS companies, are born, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. At the time, these algorithms were built into macros in Excel, and I was filling out Excel sheets and kind of running it, and it was fairly time consuming.
Yes.
So instead, it's like, man, it'd be really cool if this was just a little Chrome extension. It essentially populated this Excel sheet for me. And for those listeners who are familiar with Jungle Scout, the Chrome extension still kind of looks a little bit like an Excel sheet. There's rows and columns with different pieces of data, and that's how it was born.
And from there, so at the time you build the Chrome extension, and then when did you kind of it clicks for you, like, okay, I think I've got something bigger here, that it's beyond than just a Chrome extension. I think I've got something that could be a significant company.
Yeah, so I to launch the Chrome extension, I built up a little email list. I had like 100 emails on it. And
I love how scrappy it is. I love that.
Yeah. And on launch day, I sold 10 of them. It's like 10% conversion rate out of a
awesome.
new email list.
$1,000
I was like, sweet.
Let's go. That's good.
$1,000. And the funny thing about it actually was I spent $1,000 to develop the very first Chrome extension, because it only took the guy like a week or two. It's not anything like it is today.
You got all your return back already. So it's good.
Yeah, win right away.
Yeah.
So I was pretty stoked about that.
Uh-huh.
And I had no idea how to scale it up from there. But through different experiments that I was running, and really a lot of word of mouth in the early days, as well with like a few key affiliates, it started to sell like a few of these each day. So I was making a few $100 from it. It was software, so there was, or at least at the time, the way the Chrome extensions are struggled, there was no incremental cost per customer. So I was like, man, this is pretty sweet. I instead of dealing with all the inventory like I do in my physical products business, I can just sell a bunch more of these. I don't have to make more of them. That's pretty awesome.
Correct.
And I think it was about after 6 months that it was at that point maybe selling like 10 a day. So I was like, all right, $1,000 a day for, I had no employees. I was doing everything myself. I was only working on this thing like 5 or 10 hours per week. It's like, okay, this feels like it has legs that I should devote more effort to it. But I was still had a little bit of a struggle because my other business, selling these physical products on Amazon, was also going really well. So I was like, is this one of those things that I'm just getting distracted by? And, that there's that, like, I think it's common for entrepreneurs, to always see something that
it's
seems
opportunity cost as well, right? If you choose this, it's not this, right? I get it.
Totally.
Get it.
So yeah. But at about 6 months, I was like, all right, this seems to have enough legs that I should devote some more time to it. So
double down.
Probably between like months 6 and 12,
Okay.
I was devoting half of my time to it. And at that point is when I made my first 2 or 3 hires to kind of help me with it.
Got it. And during that time, what were some of the challenges that you experienced? Because from selling physical versus going to a SaaS world, it's a very, very different thing. It could get very costly, and it's also requires different skills, right? So what are some of the things that you had to overcome personally?
I had every challenge in the book. I had no idea how to do any digital marketing, because on Amazon, like, they drive all the traffic there for you. So essentially you put up a product and these customers magically appear. Whereas
it's a marketing skill.
Exactly. So I had no marketing skills. I wasn't a developer. I didn't know anything about building software. So I made like every mistake in the book.
Okay.
But I think if I look back, the largest challenges for me for that first year were around customer acquisition, how to scale it up from that standpoint. Because like the feedback I was getting from the customers that were using it was fantastic. They're like, oh my gosh, this is a lifesaver. Like before I was, really running blind on Amazon. Now I understand all these metrics really well. So like I was getting really, really positive feedback from it. But I think for a period of time, I was kind of like plateaued at maybe like 10 new customers per day. And it's like, how do I scale it up from here? And that was my largest challenge. On top of that, or I'd say like with that, I think since I didn't know anything about digital marketing, I think I didn't devote enough time or focus in any one particular channel. And instead was just like jumping around. Like one day I would read an article about how Facebook ads work great for it. So I would spend a day on it, but I still wouldn't get good at it at all. And then the next day it's like, oh no, it's all about content marketing. So I would do like one blog post.
and then no traction yet. Oh, this doesn't work. Let's try something else, right?
Exactly. I think that's exactly what was going through my mind. Looking back, it's pretty wild kind of how green I was. But I think that was like my biggest struggle.
And how long it took you to get to like the first, let's say the first million in revenue? How many years?
I actually did the first million that first year.
Oh, that's good. That's very good. That's exponential growth.
Yeah.
Wow.
So yeah, like looking back on it, it was really impressive. And after that, it's growing a few 100% year over year.
And then so during that time, in terms of acquiring customers, what did you do that actually, okay, this works? Or was that like a bunch of things?
The most effective channel for us that first year was the affiliate channel.
Got it.
So there's still are like quite a few people in the space that are kind of teaching about selling on Amazon or have different groups or masterminds or whatever else. And when they use it for the first time, they kind of had this aha moment, just like everyone else, like, wow, now I can have all these really powerful metrics on Amazon, whereas before I had none. And they're like, you know, like, do you have an affiliate program? I would love to sell this to everyone I know selling on Amazon. And for that first year, I don't remember exactly, but probably like at least half, maybe 3/4 of new customers came through the affiliate channel.
Got it. And did you change the pricing the first years? Was it still $100 lifetime, or did you change it to recurring already?
I don't think I changed it to recurring until like year 2. So at the time it was still, maybe I increased the price a little bit by the end of year 1, but it was pretty much still like $100 get you access to this thing.
Wow. And you were paying affiliate, what percentage to motivate them?
I think 30%.
Well, that's good. Okay. So for them, they're already experts, educators, speakers in that categories. It's something that will help the students to get better results. $100 to make $30. It's an easy sell for them. They're happy because they get essentially free money. You're happy because you're getting customers with no cost, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Got it. And then after the first year, and then what about second and third year as you're growing? I'm sure now from solopreneur to now having a team, what was it like? And what I want to know is how did you transition from solopreneur to now the CEO, especially EY Entrepreneur of the Year? I mean, that's a great accomplishment.
It was a long path. Like one of my favorite sayings is, I didn't make this up, someone else did, but it took 6 years to become an overnight success, or you know, whatever it is.
Yes.
You know, I think, let's see, if I think about like the biggest pieces that were influential in that transition, I have to go back to like the team that I built and the hiring, and learning how to kind of like manage these people well. I think that was like probably the most important skill set that it takes to go from kind of solopreneur, have a business with maybe a handful of people, to like be leading large teams.
Yes. Yeah. And what have you learned that you could share with my listeners who are entrepreneurs in terms of building their high performance team, leading that team? Maybe they just, like you were before, hired the first couple of people. They don't know exactly what they're doing. They're trying to figure this out. Like, what would you say to them? It's if you are a mentor.
Yeah. 2 things jump to mind for me. The first one is, I remember I would be stuck in the trap. And when I talk to kind of new or young entrepreneurs, I see the same thing. And that's like, I'm so busy, I don't have time to interview and hire or like to do it well. And I think that's quite the fallacy, because you can never, there's only so many hours in a day. So, you know, I was working crazy long hours, but still, like, you can only get so much done as a single person.
Yes.
And I think it's very important to recognize that a little bit earlier on and allocate the time required to have like a really good interview and hiring process, because that's really how you multiply yourself, is by bringing on excellent talent. So that comes to mind. The other thing that I know I did a pretty bad job at, and I see this often in our new managers at Jungle Scout, is they're like worried or concerned or maybe just scared about holding team members to a really high standard. So like they're nervous about giving that critical and honest feedback often, because they think they're going to hurt their feelings, or they're going to quit.
Yeah.
Yes. Or that maybe they have an imposter syndrome. Like they shouldn't be a manager. So like, why would they respect me to kind of take this feedback and things like that?
Yes.
But at the end of the day, actually, the vast majority of people like that critical and honest feedback because that helps them grow and that helps them understand how to get better. So it's like, they think they're doing something that's really bad that the employees don't want to do and they're scared of. And in reality, like the employees and the team members want it. So that's why it's, kind of this funny thing.
I love that. And the ones who don't want it, they are probably not the right fit for the company anyway, right?
Absolutely.
The ego is so big that they don't take any feedback, then you don't really want them in your organization.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And through that period of time and now going into, what about when the company gets a little bit, let's say over 100 people, were there any challenges? Because now you probably have an executive team, right? You have some C-suites and VPs. What was that like?
Yeah. So the kind of like a little bit of the turning point for me when I think about that question was, I think it was when we were around 30-ish people. Up until that point, almost all the hires that we were bringing on were very much like these scrappy entrepreneurial people, kind of like what I saw in myself a little bit. So it was like people that could do a lot of everything.
Maybe young, ambitious, right?
Absolutely. Like work really hard, hustle really hard. And I think those are actually great team members to have for that first 5, 10, maybe even 15 people or whatever. But after I built a team of 30 of them and there were like no experienced or seasoned managers. And, like I don't remember exactly, but I probably had like 10 or 12 or maybe 15 direct reports, and the reporting structures were all messy and everything. And around that time period is when I started to hire more seasoned managers. And then I think I brought on the first executive to maybe like around 40 or 50 people. And then, and then all of a sudden I kind of had this aha moment, like, wow, they make my life so much easier because they're great at managing people and building these teams. And instead of just complete chaos, now all of a sudden we are starting to have some structure and things are going more smoothly.
And I think for my listeners and viewers, if you're listening to Greg's story, I love how humble you are, because you're not saying that, hey, I figured all this out. You're like, no, like 6 years, I made a lot of mistakes. I made a mistake here, I made a mistake here. It's like, I have done not a lot of things right. I've done some things right, but that's actually what a lot of us have gone through, because a lot of people, they see what we have built today. They'll see like, oh, you must know all the answers. Like, it must be, I don't want to say lucky, but easy for you to say, but we're like, no, actually, we probably screwed up way more than you could ever imagine. And we are still screwing up, by the way, right?
Totally.
And what about in terms of now you see Jungle Scout being a leader in the marketplace, but you have some competitors as well, right? How do you see Jungle Scout differentiates what you do from all the other, like say, Amazon software?
Yeah, great question. So, I mean, I guess like at the end of the day, I kind of think about like why, or like what are the most important aspects of these tools? Why do these customers want to buy them? Or like what influences their purchasing decisions the most? And in our particular space, like for our tools, or like for Jungle Scout in particular, they want like the best insights that are the most actionable. And at the end of the day, they want to buy a tool that helps them grow their business the most. Like they get the best ROI on. Maybe they don't exactly explain it like that, but at the end of the day, that's really what they're looking for. So that's like exactly what we try to do. And I'm biased, but I think we do quite well at Jungle Scout. So it's like the most actionable insights, the easiest to find these like new opportunities and manage their business and optimize their business. And, after using it for a period of time, they can see these real kind of like impacts on their business. Like, wow, when I got Jungle Scout, if you're a brand new entrepreneur, it's like, wow, use Jungle Scout to find that first product, and that first product's doing well. If you have a larger business, it's like, wow, after using Jungle Scout, I can see that I got my business on a different trajectory. And I think that's what we're kind of best at.
And I think also for my listeners and viewers, if you listened in between the lines, sometimes you might start a business with an idea, but it might be a brand new idea, but it may be easier sometimes. You see a trend. We know Amazon is a trend. It's going to be a trend for many, many years. In some way, this is like a secondary market of, hey, here's a tool that will help more people to sell on this massive platform that's growing, right? And you can build a very successful business just doing that by serving their customers, seeing it's actually solving a very particular problem. It's not even like all these, no, it's like here's one problem that you have, and it's probably the most important problem because before you even spend a dime buying a bunch of inventory from China, selling on Amazon, it reduces your risk. It's almost like a stock trading software, right? You're gonna trade. This is gonna help you minimize your risk and maximize your return.
That's exactly right.
I love that.
And that's actually how I thought about that. That Amazon business that I was building is back then, at least, it was very common for people to at least the inventory that, or like the goods that they were selling, kind of mimicked how mom and pop brick and mortar stores would be set up. Like I'm a sports store, so I sell all sports items. Whatever. Enter your type of store here. Whereas I entered it with a different mindset, and it was kind of like a stock trading mindset, and that's what reminded me of it, Dan. That I was like, I don't care what I sell. I just want the items that essentially are the best opportunity. So
Correct.
I was selling a whole hodgepodge of all kinds of weird stuff. And that's actually what led to this success.
Yes. And do you sometimes, like, I assume, talk to us about data, because you probably collect a lot of data now through the software, right? Do you, first of all, how do you best utilize that? Second is, do you sometimes see, like, maybe a little bit shiny objects, like, hey, I think I could sell that. This is going well. Like what goes through your mind? Like, how do you best use the data? And then will the data distract you? Like, personally, sometimes just for fun, hey, maybe I can sell that.
Yeah, good question. Yeah, it's actually something that I get asked quite often. Like, okay, if I like sync up my Amazon account, like, how do I know either you, Greg, or maybe other people at Jungle Scout or whatever? Can like
cutting the line. Yeah,
totally. For one, we have real strict kind of like privacy policies and confidentiality, all those things are protected about that. But actually, at the end of the day, though, our software has gotten so good that like there's not anything that anyone does or can sell that the software or the system doesn't already know about and doesn't already analyze the opportunity there.
Got it.
So people feel like, like, what if you see that my marshmallow sticks are selling 100 units a month? It's like, before you ever sync up your account, we already know that those sell 100 units per month, and we know more than you do. We know, what the competition's like and all these other data points, and those actually aren't taken from our customers' data. We actually don't use or repurpose any of that data in any way. These are all through the other external data sources and like a really sophisticated data science team. So yeah, at the end of the day, like there's nothing out there that our software doesn't know about is what it comes down to on Amazon.
Nothing new under the sun for Amazon. I mean, it's got everything now. Yes.
Right.
And what happens, like, since, let's say, last year, do you see any changes within your company or the market, like since like COVID? Do you see the businesses booming more? I'm assuming more people going on Amazon because more people want to start their own businesses. Like, what do you see?
Yeah. So COVID was definitely a big boost for Amazon. Pretty much like overnight, sales on Amazon increased by about 50%. Now, different categories, a little bit different level, but if we look at it as a whole, it was roughly 50%.
Yes.
And what's crazy about this is like we're talking about, like billions and billions of dollars of sales here.
Yeah.
And almost overnight, like within a 1 week period. So like practically overnight, sales on Amazon increased 50%. They haven't gone down since then. Sometimes they've actually continued to rise a little bit, but that's like it's really hard for us to wrap our head around like how many units or like how much like goods those are. And what happened is the supply chain has been like way slower to catch up to that.
Got it.
So the result of it is like 2020 was probably like the best year for Amazon sellers in the history of Amazon. And the reason for that is like, if we look at demand and supply, demand skyrocketed overnight, but supply is much slower to catch up because you're importing,
takes time.
It takes time. So yeah, like, we see like overall revenue numbers increase, but also profits are up because with less supply, the prices are a little bit higher. So it's And this is, I said 2020, but this is actually still true in 2021. So it's actually like Amazon sellers are doing great right now.
For sure. And then, of course, they would need to use a tool like Jungle Scout. Do you also see that now with Amazon, they are, of course, expanding the Amazon empires, a lot of different initiatives. Just from your perspective, because you're in the community, what do you see, where you see some of them, maybe in the next couple of years, where some of these big opportunities for entrepreneurs?
Good question. I mean, honestly, even just in like the US, there are still so many good opportunities right now that like you don't even have to really look much further than that. That being said, if we are looking further than that, some of the other markets like Germany or UK are also growing really quickly. So there's a lot of good opportunities there. But like for an entrepreneur or a small business, like if I were to ask your listeners that are listening to this right now, like what would be like a winning year for you? They might say like, oh, $1 million in sales, $5 million in sales, $10 million in sales, maybe. Yes. But like in the spectrum of Amazon, I mean, it's over half of all e-commerce sales in the US. On the spectrum of Amazon, like selling $10 million extra is nothing. It's not even the smallest blip on the radar.
Not a beep.
Right.
Nothing.
So if you're doing like, we have some customers that are doing 100 million or 300 million a year on Amazon. For them, maybe they're starting to look at like, okay, what are these other opportunities? Because I'm trying to grow this to $1 billion a year in sales. And for those people, that makes more sense. But like, if you consider $10 million in sales a year a win, and like, you don't have to, like, any of the marketplaces have more than enough opportunities to do that.
So then for anyone who wants to get into it, don't even think about, oh, it's too late, it's saturated. Well, what we're saying here is, no, look at the demand, look at the supply. There are plenty of opportunities, right?
Right. Like I'm confident we collect more data on this stuff than anyone else in the entire world. People at Amazon joke that we understand Amazon sales much better than anyone internally at Amazon. And it actually might be true. So it's like, if anyone knows, like I think it's like me and us here at Jungle Scout, just because we have so much data on this stuff.
I'm also curious from a risk perspective, how come Amazon doesn't provide this kind of data, right? Like, why do they leave this to another third-party company? And do you see also risk of, example, Amazon doing it themselves, Amazon saying that no more external sources for data? Like, do you see that being a risk as like a CEO, or like that's not a concern at all?
Good question. As far as my concerns about Amazon doing it themselves, I am not concerned about it.
Okay.
And I used to lose a lot of sleep over this, and I'll tell you why it's changed. And that is, it's for a few reasons. Like, no one at Amazon's told me this, but I have great suspicion that, or I've kind of heard it a little bit, but we don't go into much of that. But it's like they really like the separation. Or actually, let me start at a different spot. Amazon recognizes that Jungle Scout is very good for their business because we help new sellers get started and do so effectively. We help people grow their business. And like when Amazon sellers sell more, Amazon makes more money. So they recognize that like we're really impactful and do a really good job at that. So like it's a very symbiotic relationship from that standpoint. So as far as like worries about Amazon getting upset with us or anything else, I don't have any of those, because now dozens and dozens of people at Amazon have told me like how they recognize that Jungle Scout's a really good thing for the Amazon business. So like they would actually be probably pretty upset if Jungle Scout went away. As far as Amazon doing it themselves, it's my belief that they would prefer to kind of stay arm's length from some of that stuff. So for example, you have to imagine if you were at Amazon and P&G found out that you were giving away their data as far as like how many units they were selling or whatever else. P&G would be pretty upset at them. Or all of a sudden they're giving out their data and it's affecting their stock prices. So they wouldn't want that either, right? So the nice thing about being arm's length to someone, like Jungle Scout is instead it's like the information's getting out there, which actually is beneficial to their platform, but it's at arm's length, so it doesn't like negatively affect some of these different items like we spoke about. So it's like it's a symbiotic relationship. They recognize how powerful it is, and I don't think it's really that beneficial for them to release the information themselves. And then on top of that, like we've just seen with every platform in the world that scrappy startups are much better at innovating and developing things much quicker than these big giant corporations are. So on the other end of the spectrum, it's like, I'm not that concerned. Like even if they release some of this data, what we do is much more powerful than that, because we're actually giving like the actionable insights on top of it that, have been developed and improved over 6 years.
That makes a lot of sense. They can remain neutral at the same time. It's like Apple. They know that there's a whole secondary market, right? People selling cell phone cases, people selling, different things. And Apple, it's like, yeah, we can have some cell phone cases, but they know there's this massive market that's worth billions of dollars. Hey, I'll let you guys deal with that. They stay kind of to within the lane, right? This is what we're good at, and we focus on that. That's beautiful. That's beautiful.
Yeah, and like another analogy, if we use Apple again, is they developed the App Store because they recognize that we can't develop every app under the sun. And we also recognize that these startups are more innovative. They're going to think about things we didn't think of. They can build faster. So instead, it's like they were for more of the platform play of, hey, we'll provide the APIs, we'll provide the platform, and then we'll let these innovative, fast-moving startups be the ones to really develop on that.
And for my listeners, if they are, let's say, starting a business, they're doing a few $100,000 a year, right? And they're stuck at that spot, right? I think a lot of my listeners, they want to go to that 1 million, 2 million, 3 million, 10 million and beyond. What are some of the key lessons that you have learned that you would like that would help them?
To start, I think that I also work with a ton of entrepreneurs. Like it's a passion of mine. I love the entrepreneurial spirit in general. It's just like the coolest thing ever. And the first thing that kind of jumped out at me when I was listening to that question was it's always kind of amazing to me how little most entrepreneurs know or understand about their metrics and their analytics and what's working and what's not. And I think that's super important, because in order to understand what it's going to take to scale, to scale 5 times bigger than you are, 10 times bigger than what you are, you have to understand kind of like what's working and what's not, and like what you should double down on, or maybe like when it's like appropriate to kind of like go after new channels. So I would say, like, to start, it's super important for you to understand what aspects of your business are kind of like working well and what it would take to grow to the next spot. So I guess if you're listening to this right now, I would ask yourself that question. Like, is it, your factory needs to be producing more, or is it that you just need better customer acquisition, or, there's all these different things that can kind of hold back scale. So I'd say that's a really important aspect. And then one other thing that I'll just kind of add to that is, I told the story a little bit earlier about how that first year, how like, it felt like every day I was jumping around to like a different customer acquisition channel, and like this kind of a shiny object syndrome. And I would say another important piece of it is recognize that in order for any of those to be really effective, you have to be excellent at them. So working on, Facebook ads for a day or a week isn't going to do it justice. So instead, I'd think about what's one thing that you could like devote the rest of this year to, become excellent at it, and really start to scale it up before trying to expand to more products or more customer acquisition channels or that type of thing.
And would you also say that when you started Jungle Scout, did you ever imagine that it would be where it is today?
No, not in a million years.
Well, you're thinking about $1,000. I'm happy. This is good.
Yeah. When I was starting it, I had such this like limiting mindset, in that I was, at the time, I was so much thinking about, at first it was replace my income so I could quit my job. That was like my threshold of what
first big goal. Yes.
That was first goal. And then after that, for a period of time, my goal was try to make enough money from this so I don't have to worry about ever going back to my old job. That was like, it was like the scariest thing for me.
Yes.
So that's kind of
coming from a place of scarcity, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So I came from like such a place of scarcity that I don't like, the first year or two, I don't even know if I would love to say I'm like, was like this visionary founder that had it all planned out and whatever else, but like, I don't even think in the first year or two, I even considered or thought about getting to the scale of what it is now. I was focused on not having to go back to my old job that I hate.
Well, sometimes I say the two things that motivate us in life, right? It's inspiration and desperation. Right?
Yeah.
That's like, I don't want to go back to that. I don't know what I want, but I sure know what I don't want.
That's absolutely right. For sure.
And then now running the company, what's your vision for Jungle Scout, let's say in the next 3-4 years?
Yeah, so I think through Amazon, well, let me start by just saying that I'm extremely bullish on e-commerce, like as far as my crystal ball can see. And I think almost everyone agrees with me on that one. It's like even slow adopters started to adopt it during COVID when they're in quarantine. All of a sudden it's like, oh man, Prime shipping is way better than running errands. Like,
wait till the drone comes. That's even better.
Exactly, for sure. It's like, it's only getting better.
Yeah.
So, we want to be like the best enablers of e-commerce. So what we've kind of recognized was, e-commerce is booming, very much like believe in it or whatever, but these e-commerce businesses, whether or not they're a small entrepreneur, or we also have some of the largest brands in the entire world using our product, like they all need like tools and resources, insights, data, analytics to help their business grow and succeed. And I think we understand really well what makes e-commerce companies successful. And, like we want to help all of them become more successful through this. So like we started that with Amazon. In the future, it's going to expand like well beyond that. But you can think of Jungle Scout as like, we are the e-commerce enablers. We're like the product or the tool that you need to really be successful selling online.
So it could be it doesn't have to be just Amazon, but it could be Shopify or other type of e-com business, right? Platforms you can help them and enable them to sell more.
Yeah, absolutely. Because what we've seen is we got started with Amazon. It's the kind of the obvious choice because it's half of e-commerce in the US. But really, like all of the things that we're doing for Amazon, we can do the same thing for either any marketplace or your own e-commerce stores. And that's the vision for it.
And you already have the playbook.
Yeah, exactly. We kind of worked out all the kinks.
Yes. And for our listeners, if they want to find out more, if they're thinking of selling on Amazon, what's the best way for them to learn more about Jungle Scout?
Yeah, so one of the things I'm really proud of about Jungle Scout is like the amount of high quality content we put out there for free. So like, if listening to this show piqued your interest and you want to check it out, or you want to expand to Amazon or continue to scale up your business, if you go just to our website, junglescout.com, there's a free resources section. There's like a million videos, more than I can count, and blog posts and resources and guides and really everything that you need, whether you're just getting started and you're trying to explore that, or you're a pretty seasoned veteran, you want kind of like those more sophisticated or advanced playbook to help you kind of like get to the next level.
Awesome. And Jungle Scout is the way to go, right? And it's as using a tool, education, even if you're thinking about it or you're not thinking about it, just if you want to learn more about it, I do think doesn't matter what businesses that we're in, e-com is here to stay, it's growing. We need to learn more about it, just see how even it would affect what we do, right? That's absolutely a big time. Awesome. Thank you so much for being on the show. I appreciate you, man. Like, it's awesome story. It's so much fun. I know we can talk for hours, but I appreciate your time. And I'm curious to see 2-3 years, maybe I can bring you back on and see where Jungle Scout is at.
I would love to do that. I'm sure I'll have plenty more stories then. So thank you very much for having me on. It's been awesome.
Thank you.
Take care.
Take care.